All right, so let's start officially. My name is Michał Strzeszewski, Suncom Company, Poland, and I will be your host for today's presentation of Audytor SET software. As you can see in the subtitle, I will speak about the general principles of the software and about the new functions that we added in the recent versions. All the time, you can write your questions using the questions panel. You can undock it, make it a bit bigger, make it more comfortable. And you can write questions anytime. I will probably answer them only from time to time or at the end as a kind of questions session. So now let's speak about the general principles. So from version 7.0, we integrated in one application the three modules. The module for central heating design, central cooling with ice water systems with fan coils, and H2O. This is the module for the internal water supply systems or plumbing systems. And we have integrated these three modules in one application. That gives us some advantages. First, you can design in one project all these three systems if necessary. So now you can see the architecture. Architecture is flattened, especially because for us, the systems are more important and we don't want the walls to hide our systems. Therefore, the architecture is presented that way. And then we can design the heating system, cooling system, and a water supply system. And while designing, I believe it's easier to observe one system at a time, but sooner or later it's good to observe all the system at once, and then you can easily see the collisions, like in this example. You can see the collision here between the radiator and the bath tube. And then what's important these days and age is the possibility to export the system to Revit. More and more often, the investors demand also the model of the system in Revit. And as I know, some companies just employ some young, skilled people to redraw the system that has already been designed in Revit. And of course, I believe it's very good that young people can earn money and get some practice. That is very good, of course. However, it's additional money, time, and also if you do it manually, it's possibility to make some mistakes. Therefore, not to do the same work twice, we can export it from our software, from Pro version to Revit automatically. On the left-hand side, you can see the water supply systems as designed in Audytor, and on the right-hand side, you can see the effect of export the same system to Revit. And now the general principles of designing, that's valid from CH, because at that time it was only in CH. From version 4.0, we've got two main methods of design. The first one is designing on the diagram. For me, that seems a little bit obsolete, and I generally recommend the second method that I will show you in a second. However, I know that for some purposes, for some people, still it works. For example, some people like this method when they design the renovation of the old existing vertical system. So therefore, we didn't exclude it in the software. We keep it in the software. And nowadays, it's even easier, more ergonomic to work even in this method. But the second method is designing on the plan views. And this method is much I think, especially for the new buildings, much easier, much faster, much effective. I will discuss that in a second. But at this point, I would like you to understand that there are these two methods, and you as designers, you can choose which one for the specific design is better for you. When we design the plan views, we still create, we really create only in this method, the 3D model of the building. I think it's very important because our reality is a 3D reality. It's also very often nowadays demanded by the investors. And also the practice shows that in 3D, you can see some problems, some collisions that you cannot see so easily in the plan view or any scheme, any diagram. So therefore, it's good to create the 3D model. However, as you may know from other software, also from the general graphical software, for me, it's a really great thing, great time to model anything in 3D, but it's really time consuming because our screen are 2Ds, and then you have always have to freeze something, have to decide always in which directions you are moving something, so on and so on. And we developed the philosophy that it proves to be really effective because most of the time we don't work with the 3D, we draw the systems in the flat plan view, in the 2D plan view, and the third dimension is created automatically by the software using some information about the levels and how these third dimensions is really very repeated. So that is very easy to enter this information, for example, the levels of fan coils or radiators and so on. So the general principle is that you work most of the time on the flat plan view, and the third dimension is created automatically. That is much easier and dramatically faster. We have also the 3D editor. If necessary, you can also edit something in the 3D editor. However, most of the time, it's really much easier and faster to work with the flat plan view. This is our philosophy, and it proves really to be time-saving. And the same philosophy is Audytor SET, also in Audytor HVAC. It's a very similar approach that we use the 3DX editor, but only in some justified case. And now about the newest functions. First, the functions that are maybe not the newest because there are more than a year now, that we introduced in version 7.1. First, it's the automatic creation of Axonometry. So that makes the possibility to create even more complete documentation of the design. We suggest by default such a solution that the separate stories are separated from each other, so the elements of different stories, they don't overlap, but it's only an option. If we can go to the software. So first, when I go to Axonometry projections, I can see just the white space. To obtain the axonometrical drawing, I have to click this button, update, and then I obtain. And this is this version that I already discussed, that the stories are separated. I can decide which systems I can see. For example, I decided I want to see only the heating systems, and if I change the options, so this is this solution without separating, so now it's much more difficult to see, but it's an option. Maybe in this case we want this show the architecture, maybe now it's more clear. So as you see, we've got here some buttons to decide. You can also change the rotations, and under this button here you have the complete dialog box to edit all possible options for Axonometry. The option that is connected to Axonometry is the synchronizing of labels of different stories. If you've got big buildings with many stories, that can also save a lot of time and make your drawing more organized. We have this intelligent duplications. Before it was only upwards. Then in version 7.1, we introduced the possibility to copy it also downwards. That may be useful, for example, in case of designing the risers. The other option is showing the real selected diameter of pipes. Because pipes, as we draw it with lines, all the lines normally they have the same thickness, but the real diameter of pipes can be really quite different, and we've got now the possibility to show it on different drawings, as you see, both these technical drawings and also in the visualization of the system. And the other comment, this comment is not really new, that has existed for ages, but now it's just in easier access. If we want to change, for example, by default, we suggest this yellow radiator, but you can choose another color. You have to edit the layers because we use this layer techniques like in probably all the CAD software. But we have about 100 standard layers, so to find the appropriate layer, it can take you a few seconds. Much easier nowadays is to right-click it, and then under right-click, you've got this command layer properties, and then it opens the layer on already the appropriate layer, the layer that depends on the element that you have just clicked, so it's an easier access. And the other command that is not new, but again an easier access, that's pretty important, is showing the circuit through the specified receiver. It has existed before, but you have to use the control. You have to click the receiver with control button. Not everybody knew that. So now, again, it's under right click. You have to go to the drawing with the results, of course, and under right click, you've got this showing the circuit through the receiver, and that opens the table. This table is very long because it includes all the circuits, but it opens it at a specific and appropriate place where the circuit through this specific circuit starts. The circuit through this receiver that you have clicked. And that is very useful for problem finding. Let's imagine that we have very high resistance of the system and we have to find the guilty element, the problem. If it's one, because I have seen the designs that you can see not one, but many problems in one design, but still you can use this method. So first you turn on showing the critical circuit. So first you localize that, then you go to the receiver, radiator most of the time, and then you right click it and you open this table. This table has got more columns, so you can exclude some of them to make only the most important. And the most important probably is this one, the resistance through the each element. And then you've got pipe, and then you see 16 pascals, 41, it's nothing, then about 200. Then you've got 11,000, yes, but it's the radiator, including also some kind of connection, including the valve with the preset 1. So therefore it's relatively high. So in this case, it's justified, but let's imagine you can find here the number that says 100, 200,000 pascals. And of course, then you see that it's a problem. The other functions, it's not our idea. You say that you can find it in a lot of software. But for the people that use the software professionally for many hours daily, that can really save time, this is the shortcuts. You can define some shortcuts. For example, here, just as an example, for the supply pipe, it's suggestions HS, so like heating supply, then return pipe HR, heating return, that H1 if you design single pipe systems, and H2 if you wish to draw the pair of pipes. It can be 1 letter, 2 letter, 3 letters. Of course, if you have more letters, it's more time. If it's 1 letter, so that limits the number of the shortcuts that you can create. It's of course an option, but probably for the people who use it for many hours, like you can maybe save, I don't know, a second, half of the second, a quarter of the second each time. But if you multiply that for some thousands activations a day, so at the end of the day, you can save 20 minutes, 30 minutes, and probably it's worth. Then the function that we introduced in version 7.2, so that is the current version, but we introduced that already some months ago. We introduced a new 2D graphic module, because for in the previous years we invested a lot of our time and effort in the 3D solutions, and then it was the time that we came back to the 2D solution. And this, we believe that works, that it looks more clearer, it's more effective. And this is one of the solutions that it's like if you watch the television of the high resolution. Now all of us watch television HD and we say, it's okay, what's the big deal? We don't see any advantage unless we go back to the old style television and say, oh, can anybody watch that? And again, this is when you switch to this new model, maybe you won't see much difference and say, okay, it works, so what's the big deal? And then when you come back to the previous one, they say, oh, okay, it really works smoother. The other option, we introduced the possibility of presenting a part of other drawing in the specific drawing. So that also makes the software more flexible to prepare the technical documentation. Also, we have introduced the selective selection. Selective selection sounds funny, but also it's a function that in the big designs can make it easier, because if you select, for example, by the window, so now you have this mode. So if you are in the, for example, in the heating system mode, so you would select anyway only the elements of the heating systems, not the architecture, for example. But now you can decide more precisely. For example, what you can see here is that I wish to select only radiators. So thanks to that, it's easier to select what I wish to select. Another, this is pretty small, but maybe helpful function, that showing the critical circuit. Now it's more clear because everything else it's weakened, because normally we turn this option on for a moment just to localize this critical circuit. And so nowadays it's easier to just to see it. Also, we extended the options of showing the neighboring floors, because it was before only possibility to showing the previous floor. Now you can decide whether you want to say to watch previous or maybe the next. Previous and next, normally it means previous, it means from the lower story, next from the upper story. However, you can change it, and temporarily you can define any story that would be considered as a previous or next. So with this option, you can watch any other story if necessary. Also, the possibility of temporarily turning off the labels. Labels, I believe, are very important elements of the technical documentations. And especially sometimes I have to explain that to some new people, some students, that but you don't make these drawings for the enemy. You do it for somebody that is going to just to construct the system, you have to treat him as a friend, not as an enemy. So the documentation should be clear and the labels are very important. However, for analyzing the systems in the inside the software, sometimes maybe more clear to switch it off. So you can switch it off temporarily. It's not deleting, it's just switching off, and then you can come back. Anyway, as I do it myself and also realize that it's more and more common. If you verify the design, it's much easier to do it in the software because you can observe different results, you can run the calculations, you can see the diagnostics, and you can click any elements and you can read any information that you need because in the design, if you just let's do the calculations and just let me show. And now let's go to the drawings with the results. So maybe this one. So if I select anything, for example, a pipe, now I can see all the information about this pipe. So it's connected dynamically. If I select anything in the drawing, I can see in the table. If I go through the table, it highlights. Maybe you can see it better with the higher scale. If I go through the table, then the program highlights the appropriate element. And in practice, that makes it much easier. I would say in case of big designs, that's probably the only reasonable option nowadays to verify the design. Otherwise, you would have to, if you would just obtain the blueprints and tables, that would you would need really lots of time to verify. All right. The other option is possibility of adjusting the thickness of the walls. It's if you decide to draw also the architecture, if you don't obtain it from HL. Of course, it's much better, much time effective to prepare the model of the building in HL software, calculate the heat load, and then to import it to the Audytor SET. We also extended the possibility of designing underfloor heating systems because in case of these systems, very often you have to change something. For example, if it occurs that the coil is too long because of the pipelines or the resistance, so you have to divide it or sometimes join it. So we added these options to make it easier. So for example, you can select more zones and join them, or you can divide. You can divide automatically into 2 or 3, vertically or horizontally. Or there is also this flexible division by a polygonal chain. So you draw such a polygonal chain, and then you can divide such a coil into 2 radiators. Also now you can see a little bit different colors in case of the connected and not connected circuits, so that makes it visibly clear. I have to also connect these 2 fields. Also, we extended the DWG. We have already for a longer time the new DWG module, but now we extended it. We just adopted it to this general practice that very often the architects put all the plan views in one DWG file. So now you can just import one file into our project, and then you can decide which part of such a DWG drawing to use for the specific story. Also to adjust such drawings, for example, because it can be used for any purposes, but especially for this purpose, it's useful. we have this precise moving of the objects by vector. So you can, in this example, you can switch on the previous drawing, and now you can easily define 2 points, and these 2 points will create a vector of shifting. Also, we extended the possibility of narrowing the range of the selections. We use the table set. We believe it's a very powerful tool. Maybe let's go to the drawing with data. You can select many elements, and then you can see them in the tables. And you can say, okay, what's a big deal? Table is a very simple solution, just a table. You don't have any spectacular graphic or anything. It's pretty simple. But really, if you get some practice and using this option that seem pretty simple, like sorting, searching, replacing, copying, you can edit the properties of big sets of elements. And after getting some practice, it occurs that it's really powerful tool for changing some data in case of the big designs. And we added these 2 options of narrowing. The first one is, for example, when you select some elements, in this example, radiators, and then you can select these 2 that have symbol ANA. And then with this first button, you will just keep only this ANAS radiators as you see. The second button does the opposite, just excludes ANAS from the select. So therefore, you've got a narrower selection that can make it even simpler, this editing possibilities. And now, at the end, I would like to discuss the newest functions that were introduced again in version 7.2. This is the same version. I just added A to make a kind of distinction that they were added just at the end of the last year. However, this is the same function. So if you've got the license for 7.2, you will obtain immediately this new function, just the update of the software is necessary, but you don't need any newer license. First, pretty powerful tool is the quick calculation of underfloor radiators, because in case of designing this systems, very often you have to do some decisions. You have to look for the appropriate supply temperature, which is not always obvious. Sometimes you have to decide on this division. As I said, if you have a big room, then probably you will need more than 1 coil. And you can do this analysis using this quick calculation. Quick calculation, it means that you can do it while designing. You don't need to have the complete design. We will develop also for other elements this philosophy of calculation, but for the main calculations, you need the complete design. And to obtain the reasonable results, the program demands the complete data. So at the beginning, it may happen that the program says that there are some problems that don't allow calculation. For example, if you draw a pipe and you don't connect anything, the program says it's not complete, you cannot do this full calculation. However, this quick calculation you can do anytime. You don't need any complete piping system. You just need radiators, underfloor radiators in this case, and it would be good that there are also in some rooms that the program knows the heat load. So then you can select a group of radiators. For example, Control A, you can select everything. If you are in the system mode, so everything means the elements of the heating systems only. And then you go to the speed button bar and you click this button. and then a window with the table that consists of the selected radiators. And you've got some data. You can edit this data to do some kind of simulations. You can click this button, determine the temperature range, and you will obtain for each radiator the appropriate temperature range that it can work in. As you see, for each radiator, it has been divided into 3 bars with 3 colors. Green color, it's an appropriate range. So in this range, this specific radiator can work properly. If you go to this yellow, it means that you will have the excess of the permitted low surface temperature. So the output would be okay probably, but just the surface of the floor will be too hot. The blue one, it means it will be too cold. It means that the output will be too low, lower than the required heat load. And then you can optimize. If you optimize for the investment cost, so you are looking the highest temperature that is okay for all or as many as possible radiators. In this example, it's 52. That is okay for all the radiators, but the last one, maybe it's in the bathroom, this one, but as you see, this one practically hasn't got this green space, so probably it's a problem you have to address in the other way. Maybe it's a bathroom, you can combine the underfloor radiator with a towel dryer. Also, we extended the possibility of coil drawings. That a lot of people like this option. Some of them, they say, we even don't have the guarantee that it will be executed exactly in the same way, but our designs look better. But for any purposes, we have before had only one option. Now you have 3 to select. You can have this snail clockwise, but you can change it into counterclockwise, or you can have a meander. Of course, this snail is better because you've got better temperature distribution, but if you prefer for some specific room, you can also use this option, and you can nowadays, the program suggests something, but you can correct it, you can edit that. So, for example, this is the meander that was suggested by the software, and then you can edit it somehow. This is my exact way, just change. For some reasons, I don't say it's better, just it was to show the possibility. So you can edit that in a very flexible way, if necessary. We also introduced the import of PDF files. And, you know, on one hand, the PDF files are maybe not the best for the technical drawings because there are these general purpose files. Probably it's better to import it through DWG or DXF files. However, these PDF files are nowadays so common that in practice some technical documentation is being shared in this format. So just to address this real situation in the market, we added this option. So you can also now import the PDF file, and if it has got more pages, so you can decide which page to use for the specific story. Now we're coming to the end. So I would like to show you how to get more information about the software. And in the meantime, if you have any questions, feel free to write them in questions tab. So I would like to invite you to our website, www.suncom.net, and then you can select the language that you'd like to use, English, for example. And then you can download. If you are new to the software, first you can download the trial version free of charge. And that version is fully functional version that works for 2 weeks, and you can learn the software and you've got the license even to earn money with it. If you manage to design something within 2 weeks, you are allowed to sell it. If you use this software, if you wish to use it for a longer time, of course, you need to obtain that license. And then we have this general software that we have the brand name Audytor. And there are also some versions branded by some manufacturers. For example, we have very good collaboration with the Can company. And then, so we have the Can branded software. Generally, the functions of the software are practically the same, only the databases are limited. In this example, Can is the pipe manufacturing company, so you can use only the pipes from the Can offer. However, this program is really wide, so it shouldn't be a problem. But this software, you've got only the types of Can. In case of other elements, you've got the full databases, but the pipes are limited. And some companies like Can, they sponsor the software. So depending on the policy of the company and your collaboration with such a company, you can apply for a sponsored version with the reduced price, or maybe you can obtain it completely free of charge. And you can find some multimedia. We use more and more these video tutorials or different movies. We keep them technically on YouTube, but you can access also from our website. And there are different films. There are manuals that explain how to design systems step by step. There are some recordings of the webinars, like today's, for example. Or there are some short films that present some new functions or that they address some specific issues. The manual now is in the form of the video tutorials. There are 2 manuals, one for designing in plan views, the other for the diagrams. So they address these 2 main methods of designing the systems. And you can access them, for example, from the help system of the software. Again, these are links to YouTube. And then you can find either our English version channel or the playlist with the English materials, because as you see, we've got the materials in different languages, also in Chinese, or also in Spanish, etc. And if you have any questions, you can write to our help desk. The address is, as you can see, help@sunhome.pl or .net also worldwide. So thank you very much for your kind attention, for dedicating your time. And I wish you a lot of successful designs with our software. And of course, I wish you a lot of health. Take care. Goodbye.